Hi, my name is David Falk. I'm an American board certified prosthetist and orthotist, as well as a Florida licensed prosthetist and orthotist. I've been fitting cervical collars for the past 20 years. Immobilizing the cervical spine for fracture management or post-operative support is critical for a positive outcome. I have yet to find a prefabricated cervical collar that fits every patient properly and comfortably. Often, I will try on 4 or 5 different types of cervical collars, only for the patient to return the next day complaining of discomfort. I have fabricated custom-made cervical collars in the past. However, this process was not practical because it was very labor-intensive and time-consuming. When a patient needs a cervical collar, they need it now. It can't wait until tomorrow. I have invented a method of fabricating a custom-made cervical collar in less than 15 minutes while the patient waits. I have fit hundreds of these in my practice, and the immobilization and comfort is by far superior to any other product on the market today. This is the Atlantic Custom Collar and Fabrication Kit. The fabrication kit includes a molding model, various sized neck blocks. These neck blocks come in different thicknesses and circumferences in order to modify your model. For patients that have a fixed flexion deformity, flexion rods with the appropriate flexion wedges are used. Anterior and posterior molding blank shells. Antimicrobial and moisture wicking pad sets. Velcro straps to be applied, ace bandage, measurement equipment including a tape measure, a measurement tool, and orthometry measurement form. Now I'm going to demonstrate measuring and molding the Atlantic Custom Collar. The only tools that are not included in the collar kit are an ml gauge and a heat gun. All other tools are included in the kit. The first thing to mention is that it's very important that you measure the patient in the desired flexion angle that you want the collar fabricated in. If the neck is excessively flexed or excessively extended, your chin to sternal notch measurement will be way off and your device will not be fabricated properly. The first measurement to take is the circumference of the neck. With a tape measure, measure the circumference of the patient's neck. In this case, I get 12 1/4 inch, and I'll record that. It asks you to add 1 inch for padding thickness. That's 13 1/4, and that equals my A measurement. Next, you'll take the chin to sternal notch measurement utilizing the enclosed Atlantic Custom Collar measurement tool. There's a notation for where to place the tool on the sternal notch. You'll follow the tool up and get the measurement that matches with the bottom of the chin. In this case, it's 3 3/4 inches. Next, you'll take the occiput to the spinous process of C7. In this case, it's 5 inches. We'll then take the earlobe to shoulder measurement. And we get 4 1/4. We then take our ml stick and take an AP of the neck. And we get 4 1/4. And then we'll take an ml of the neck. I get 3 7/8. If the patient has a non-correctable flexion deformity, you would notate that now. There's a question for that on the form. Sometimes there's a patient who has a kyphotic deformity or a flexion deformity and you cannot physically extend the neck. This is rare, but if it does happen, you'll record that, and in the fabrication process, you'll use the flexed rods. When modifying your model, you'll replace the rods with these flexed rods and the appropriate flexion wedge to put the neck in a flexed posture. Now I'm going to demonstrate how to modify your model to the measurements of the patient that we just took. The kit comes with 3 different sized neck blocks. There's a 13¼ circumference, a 16 circumference, and an 18½. We're going to go to our A measurement, and whatever is closest is the one that we're going to use. For example, if the patient's measurement was closest to 16, you would use this neck block assembly. If it was an 18, you would use the wider 18 assembly. In this case, our measurement is 13¼ so we're going to use the 13¼ assembly. If your patient had a non-correctable flexion deformity, instead of the straight dowel rods, you would then install the flexed dowel rods. You would also use the appropriate flexion wedge. So if it was a 13¼ you would use the 13¼ flexion wedge, and that will put your neck in a flexed angle. Same goes for the 16 and 18½. So at this point, we're going to assemble our model with the straight dowel rods and putting them in. We're going to select the appropriate neck blocks and assemble them, sliding it in. And then you'll apply the head of your model. We'll then take our measurement tool and we'll go to from our sternal notch measurement to the chin. And at this time we have 5 inches. The measurement that we took was 3 3/4 inches, so we're going to have to remove 1 1/4 inches to get our model modified appropriately. All of these neck blocks are labeled. This is a 1/4 inch, so I'm going to remove a 1/4. I also need to find a 1 inch. This one's a 1/2 inch. I'm going to keep that, and here's a 1 inch. I'll put back my 1/2 inch, and we now removed 1 1/4 inches from the height of our model. We'll then replace the head of the model. I would suggest you double check your measurements. And I have 3 3/4 inches, and that's exactly what we wanted. And then you'll secure the wing nuts to your model. At this point, you should check your other measurements to make sure you're satisfied with the mold of your patient model. I'll check my AP. I'm happy with that. And I'll check my ML. I'm happy with that. And my earlobe to shoulder. And it's right on. It should be noted that for some unusual situations, you can grind or add material to the neck blocks to accommodate for a special situation. We have now made a model of a patient in a very quick and efficient manner. At this point, we're ready to mold our anterior shell. I'm going to lie our model down, get the anterior shell, and place it on the model. Some people will put the model in their lap while they're sitting in a chair, so you could try both ways and see what your preference is. At this point, we're going to heat the molding blank for about 45 seconds, being careful not to overheat. You do not want the plastic to turn clear, as that will leave scuff marks when you're molding. You'll see that it starts to curl in around the neck as you're heating. Again, about 45 seconds, making sure the chin and sternum area, as well as both sides, are heated evenly. Okay, we got that. We'll then take our ace bandage and you'll wrap circumferentially. And you want to really get a good wrap to secure the mold to the model. Some people will do this sitting in a chair with the model between their knees. So if you're in a hospital setting, you could easily do that. We now wait about 4 minutes and the anterior shell will be molded. After the 4 minutes, we now remove the ace bandage and anterior shell. We're going to repeat this process for the posterior side. Get my ace bandage ready to go, or you could have a second one. So we'll apply the posterior shell. We'll then get our heat gun. On a high heat, same thing as on the front side. 45 seconds. You'll see it start to curl in on the sides. You do not want the plastic to turn clear. If it does, just let it cool before you apply the ace bandage. Okay. And we apply the ace bandage as we did on the anterior shell. This ace bandage has Velcro, so it'll stick to itself. You can then use your hands to make sure everything's molded nicely and you're satisfied that the shell is in contact with your model. We now wait 4 minutes and the posterior shell will be completed. While you're waiting for the 4 minutes for the posterior shell, this is a good time to apply the pad set to the anterior shell. There's 2 pads that go on the anterior shell, and there's already Velcro attached to the molding blank. You'll fasten your pads. Make it as symmetrical as possible. Now that the 4 minutes has elapsed, we'll remove the ace wrap on the posterior shell and apply the pads as well. The posterior shell has 1 pad, and you'll carefully position it, put it in place. Check your positioning and fix it accordingly. And we now have the padding on the posterior shell. At this point, we're going to apply the self-adhesive Velcro. There's 1 long piece right here and 2 shorter pieces of the self-stick Velcro. The long piece goes right around the back of the posterior shell. Peel off the layer and position it on the posterior shell like so. We'll then put the 2 smaller pieces on the sides of the anterior shell, like so. It's good to rub this with a scissor, I've found, to really lock it in. Do the same for the other side. Secure your Velcro. And apply your Velcro strap. This design is with the front shell overlapping the back shell. We then apply the long Velcro strap, and we're ready to fit and trim to the patient. At this point, we're ready to fit our patient and make any appropriate adjustments. It's common practice to have to trim certain areas like under the ear and if the chin is protruding of the collar. In this case, I'd like to trim the chin region and a little bit of the padding under the ears where it's hitting her ear. I'll carefully remove the collar and take a scissor and trim accordingly. We highly recommend that the patient receive 2 sets of pads for hygienic purposes. And we now have a completed custom-made Atlantic custom collar. You just saw me fabricate a custom molded cervical collar in a very practical way that can be used in everyday practice. The kit comes in a travel bag, so it's very easy to fit a patient in a hospital or their home. I am very excited to share this product with qualified providers and help you improve your outcomes. I have fit the most difficult to fit patients with this product successfully when all the other prefabricated collars failed. Feel free to contact my distributor, Banyan Healthcare, or me personally.